Good afternoon, Dr. Greer.
Hey, Pat, how are you?
Good, good. Glad to see you.
Good to see you guys.
I know you wanted to, we wanted to kind of get together and talk about some of the upcoming events that you have going on, interesting things. So would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, it's really exciting. We're going to be out at doing CE5 Contact in the desert of Arizona in September, the 16th, 17th, 18th, that weekend. And on that Sunday night, the 18th, we're going to be out in the desert on Native American sacred land under the stars. And so people can join us in person or by webinar. And we want to do a mass CE5 contact meditation each night. The first two nights, Friday and Saturday, will be inside, but we have the use of the native lands on that Sunday night. And the reason we want to do that is because it creates this huge shift in consciousness when you have thousands of people online and in person doing this meditation. You know, we did that last April. We had craft that came over. We had objects that came in the field. It was mass witnessed events. And so it's very exciting. And I'm hoping that, you know, we'll do this on a regular basis, you know, 2 or 3 times a year in person, but also by live webinar. So this is a sort of experience that people have when, you know, you look at the studies in consciousness where 1% of a population begins to do something in consciousness and meditation, it shifts the other 99% in a very positive way. So our goal globally would be to have 75 million people at some point, but this is how it starts. And so we're hoping that we'll be able to pull in a lot of people online and in person. You know, the site only holds a few hundred people, but online we can have an infinite number of people technically. So that's what we're going to be doing. And during the day, when we're not doing this at night, I'm going to do more in depth than last time on techniques for remote viewing, where I will be teaching meditation techniques, one that's more Vedic Sanskrit mantra, and the others that are breathing techniques for being in a higher state of consciousness, and then the techniques from there, how you begin to be able to see remote places and do the CE5 contact protocols. So that's going to be a big part of the project during the afternoons. And I'm also going to do a big update on official US government disclosure and what's happening in Washington that you will not hear in the news or see on the internet. And I think it's very important because, as I've mentioned, the biggest events and progress that I've seen in 32 years are currently happening. And so it's a very big movement forward. That's why I put on my 2001 disclosure project. It's a rag virtually, polo shirt from the original disclosure project. So that's
you might want to get some more of those made.
I know, I dredged it up, and it was only one that was made for me, and it's got a few holes in it. But anyone who knows me knows I honestly don't care about clothing. But the interesting, or anything else for that matter, in the material world. But I think that this experience out in Arizona, we're going to be way east of Phoenix, east of Scottsdale, at a Native American hotel, and during the day. But then this night event is on this beautiful setting. It's just a stunning setting, way out dark, out on the edge of the city, adjacent to thousands of acres of Native American sacred land, but also Tonto National Forest, which I think is something like 5 million acres. So that's going to be a really great thing for people to come to in person if you can get there. And it's a great experience for people. And one of the other things we're going to be adding to this weekend intensive, I consider these a weekend intensive training for Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, September 16th, 17th, 18th, is a really deeper dive into the higher states of consciousness and the experience of those, and how you can develop those and do your CE5 contact teams. Now in the mornings, because I'm not a morning person, I normally go to bed at 4 a.m. and get up at noon, something like that. We're going to have presentations that you'll be helping with.
Yes.
On setting up your own local CE5 team, and also Justice Campbell will be helping with that. And we're going to have sessions also on doing trans-dimensional photography. Now, people go, what does that mean? Well, if you look at the pictures we have of the ET from Andromeda that came to 𝗔𝗹𝗹 𝗣𝗍, there was a very specific way that happened and the way it unfolded. We can get into it. Same thing with the E.T. healer that healed the man of his hearing loss in Oracle, where we're actually going to be going before this event in Arizona. Up in the mountains above Tucson. And the photography isn't just take a picture, it's specific settings of a camera, certain exposures, shutter open lengths, but also a conscious component. Because what's interesting is that when we're sitting in circle under the stars doing this, there's all kinds of interstellar phenomenon happening. And not all of it's 3D. Some of it just partially comes into this dimension and vanishes for a number of reasons, including their own safety and security. But what we found is, like when our friend Raven took the picture of Bijou at Joshua Tree, she actually connected to the being because we heard a group of the ETs speaking about 3 feet outside our circle and asked permission, but was making a conscious connection with him. And he turned and waved to her, and she appeared in the picture just as she took the picture. So there's this sort of conscious interactive component to it, because interstellar civilizations, the big secret that no one at the CIA wants to talk about is that their technologies are all interfacing with consciousness, thought, and higher dimensional fields. So to be a CE5 ambassador where we initiate contact, you really got to understand that, which is what we'll be doing very much at this 3-day event in Arizona, but to then capture and document it, you have to also know the principles of the physics of going from one point in space, say, Andromeda galaxy, which is where Bijou's from, is 2.5 million light years away. Well, you're not going to travel at the speed of light. It'd take you 2.5 million years. So you're going to be going through other dimensions at resonant frequencies beyond 3D, beyond the speed of electrons, atoms, light, which means you're going through other dimensions, which are increasingly conscious dimensions and dimensions of thought and consciousness. And then you're going to reemerge into the space around this 𝗖𝗄𝗯 resort in Arizona, for example, on September 16th, 17th, 18th. Now, when they come in, they step down from a higher frequency dimension into 3D. At that instant, there's all kinds of phenomena that happens. Now, in full disclosure and honesty, I'm 10 thumbs with a camera, so I don't operate the camera. So the people who have expertise in the camera work would be, Marcel and Justice and some other folks who do this and actually know what they're doing with, really good cameras that you have now that you can do digital work with that are extremely sensitive.
They are.
We're also planning to have at this event, we hope, a 360 high resolution camera. So things that happen out on the Native American land we'll be able to capture. And this is something I've been wanting to develop for 20 years. And now we have someone who thinks they may have gotten this nailed down. So that would be very exciting. And so those are going to be some of the, highlights, but we're going to go through an intensive training in meditation, remote viewing, CE5 contact protocols. I will do an update also on what's happening in Washington, because it's very historic and it's not at the point now where it's covered in the media or on the internet. But because of the folks I'm working with, I know exactly what's happening, and we're providing the intelligence to them so that they've gotten inside these corrupt illegal projects. And now they have dozens of people coming forward as whistleblowers. But this is a very big development. It's very dangerous, frankly, but it's very, very exciting. And I'm sure in another month and a half, there'll be even further developments than what I'll be covering here today, although I do want to get into that. And the other thing about this 3-day intensive is that people who come to that can then begin to be put into a system where if they want to come for a whole week, one of these small events where we only have 20 people or 30 people out in the desert with me. But I want to have people have a certain level of knowledge and experience before they do that, so that it's a richer and more meaningful experience for everyone who comes. So that's another reason why we want people to start attending these 3-day events.
Right.
And so that's going to be very exciting. And I think what people are going to enjoy about this is the ability also. We're hoping to organize a means. We have to get our volunteers. We have about 25 volunteers coming to organize it so that people who come will be able to, at certain times, maybe lunches, because we're going to provide lunch for people on Saturday and Sunday, be in areas of the United States or a state. Like we have a convention, like you hold up a, Arizona or California or New York or whatever, so that people who are in their region, they can meet with, network with, to form CE5 local or regional teams.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, because this is what, of course, you guys have been doing in Texas, and have trained, people every month, sometimes 50 or 100 people who come. And obviously that's great because I can't be, everywhere. So that's a really good networking opportunity at a convention, a conference like this.
Lots of people have asked about that. Like, how can we meet other people there? This is good that we're doing this. This is great. This will go far.
Yeah, we probably need to get a bunch of like sticks with something on it where you can just put your state, or if you're from England or wherever, and put it and see who comes over. Because I think that's, for people who want to do it with a group. Not everybody wants to. I mean, some people do this just with their friends or family. But I think there's a real power in developing a network locally. And on that note also, we have an announcement. We have just finished the renovations on the Star Retreat Center in Hot Springs, Virginia. And of course, Pat, you'll be there in a couple of weeks with a few of the rest of us. So at some point in the near future, we will be announcing how people can sign up to use that it's got 10 bedrooms and sleeps 22 people. It's on 5 acres, but surrounded by several hundred acres. And it's about 5 minutes from about 685 acres we got that we haven't yet cleared to get up on, but we hope to eventually get a path up to the top of that land cleared, because it's surrounded by, I think, 1.8 million acres of national forest. But that retreat center is just gorgeous. And it's an old 1907 Victorian house, great energy, beautiful views. And so people who have their own local team, for example, say if there's a team that wants to meet someplace where they all gather for a week or a weekend, they can then get it. And by the way, thank you, Pat's agreed to coordinate, those teams with using that retreat center.
Nice. Happy to help.
Yeah, it's great help.
Yeah, I think there will be a lot of groups. This is always one of the things that people look for, is when they get a group together. Yeah. Is it can be problematic is if they're in your city, you have too much light pollution, but this place would be perfect.
Oh, it's so dark and remote, but you can get to them. You can fly into Dulles Airport in DC and be there in 3 hours, or into Charlottesville, Virginia, or Shenandoah Airport, or Roanoke, Virginia, and be there in an hour and a half. So, and about an hour from the West Virginia airport where White Sulphur Spring, the Greenbrier is in Lewis County. So there are airports you can fly into that are anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half. And if you want nonstop, 3 hours away. So you could go in and do that, or drive if you're in a regional, like from Atlanta, North Carolina, DC, Pennsylvania. Ohio, that part of the United States. So even Michigan, so it's an 8-hour drive, but people will do it if they're going to be there for a while. And it's nice because each bedroom has its own HVAC, air conditioning, heat controls. There are dining for 22 people inside and about that number outside.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, people are responsible for their own meals. I mean, it's just the place, but it's all beautiful. And 7 of the bedrooms have their own bath and suite. And then the 3rd floor has 3 bedrooms and a bath and a half that would be shared in its own living quarters. I think those were the very politically incorrect, but I think in 1907, those were the servants' quarters that we've now renovated into really nice space for people. And it has 2 living rooms and 2 dining areas. And so we'll have Bluetooth speakers, and we have 31 of those anti-gravity chairs. So that, so if people want to come, they don't have to bring their own chairs and stuff that, recline, where you're just very comfortable out under the stars. So that'll be there for anyone to use also in the garage.
I think that's great, because I know a lot of groups that would use this as a trip, a CE5 trip.
Yeah, it's very bonding
too.
Weekend
or a week, yeah, people would show up for that,
mm-hmm.
because it's a great property. It's dark out there. What could be better, really?
Well, and also just as a spiritual retreat for a group of people to spend time meditating away from the world. There are, very good restaurants in the area. You have the Omni Homestead Resort, which is $1 billion resort 6 minutes away. And it's beautiful, lots of national forests and lakes. There's a 2,500 acre lake about 25 minutes away, and another beautiful state park lake about 30 minutes away.
Wow.
Beautiful places to go out and do CE5 and or on the property. But I think that's a really great thing we've been wanting to develop, so that people have a place to go as a team and develop team cohesion, coherence, deepen their meditation and all of that. And so we designed it so it had that, so people would have, their private spaces. There are multiple places even for small group meditations in the main level, but then on the 2nd floor, there's a 2nd floor porch and a 2nd floor sitting area for private meditation and small groups. So it's got a lot of, we designed it so that people would have, breakout areas like that if they had a larger group. And
the bonus is that it is your place.
Yeah,
and
well, it's
bonus,
the CE5 retreat center.
When we go there in 2 weeks or so, we're doing this whole christening thing there, and it'll be wonderful.
Yeah, we're going to do the Sanskrit puja and the meditation, and we might have fun naming the rooms. I think one of them should be the bijou room, and one should. I think each bedroom should have a little
should be the
name
healer.
and a plaque. And by the way, I want to thank everyone who sent art. As you go through this house, I think maybe in a couple of weeks we'll do a YouTube from there just to show everybody. There's gorgeous art that was donated, and a beautiful set of mandalas that someone gave, and beautiful objects and things. So thank you to everyone who sent those objects in to put around and make it beautiful, because it's 7,500 square feet. So it was a lot to furnish it and make it look nice. And so it wasn't just an empty place,
Yeah,
but we did it 2.5, we, from the time we got it to now, it's 2.5 months, and it's now ready to go.
Yeah, I think doing a Zoom from there, doing an interview from there and walkthrough would be fabulous. And just even the views. You sent me a picture recently of the double rainbow. I was like, oh my gosh, look at that. Beautiful, beautiful photo.
Yeah, that's right across. That's right across from the valley from the property. And that's an 11,000 acre conservation easement where that happened. And so, and the farm around us is about almost 500 acres. And, it's set way up off the road. There's a road that goes through the valley, and it's set above and off there. I think it's a really beautiful area. Now we do get more clouds and rain here than the desert of Arizona, but you just have to plan for that. But the nice thing is there's one of these gigantic old Southern porches with Corinthian columns where you could have your whole group if it was starting to rain, and then And you could be there, and then you could go out on the grounds if it cleared up. So, it's kind of nice because it's in one of these 14-foot high ceiling old porches that was, the classic big Southern porch.
Yeah, I saw that fabulous screen door, and I thought, I haven't seen a screen door like that for 50 years.
Oh yeah, no, it's all been really beautifully preserved and renovated.
Beautiful, right?
And then we doubled the number of bathrooms so that on the first 2 floors, every bedroom has its own ensuite bath and temperature controls.
Wow.
Yeah. So
very cool.
Yes, so it's exciting. It's a lot of work, but
and when we were talking about this expedition that we're doing the week before, somebody brought up on Discord, they said, this will be great. You're out on there, or 6 nights out there, and you can let them know about the thing at 𝗲𝗄𝗏.
Exactly. Yes. So the big 3-day event that you guys are being invited to will sort of warm up the area by being about an hour and a half, 2 hours away up in the mountains above Tucson for a week with a smaller group. So I think that's exciting. And just, if people could spread the word to other groups and let them know we're doing that. And if they can't be there in person, then they can be there, virtually through the webinar.
Right. I think it'll be fun. We had a great time last time. Everybody that went had a great time. Things that happened out there that Sunday night under the stars, everybody was like, holy cow, that was amazing what happened.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's very powerful for the earth and humanity when there's a group of people doing that with this purpose of transforming the direction where we're headed, which is very disastrous, into a very positive direction. And that all happens first in consciousness. And the higher someone's state of consciousness is, the more powerful the change happens. But they've done studies, like Dr. John at the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab, the PEAR Lab at Princeton University. He was an engineering professor, and they found that with like random number generators, these quantum random generators, that if you had one person putting their awareness on it and intending in consciousness for the random number generator to shoot out more 1s and 0s, it would. But if there were 2 people that were united or loved each other, it was an exponential effect. So imagine when you have coherence with hundreds of people there and thousands of people online doing it all together. And this is what these advanced civilizations are looking for. They're looking for the earth and humans to transition to an awake, enlightened, peaceful civilization that will approach space, outer space, by first having mastered inner space, higher consciousness. So everybody wants to go out in space before we've done the work in here, in our hearts and minds and souls. And that is really a very important point. It's the reason why these ETs have such concern since the 40s, when we started detonating hydrogen bombs, atomic bombs, which tears the fabric of the cosmos, sends out electromagnetic pulses that are beyond the speed of light, disrupts interstellar communication and travel. That's why after the atomic bomb, that's why all these UFO events started happening around all our nuclear facilities, and the Roswell event. People forget the Roswell base, the Roswell Army Air Base, was the only place on Earth in 1947 that had operational atomic bombs.
People do forget that completely.
Yeah, and so it wasn't by some accident that happened. They were downed by electromagnetic directional energy weapons, primitive ones for 1947 compared to what we have now. But that was not a coincidence. And similarly, all through history, since the 40s to now, not only here, but the Soviet Union, Russia, China, France, England, nuclear armed ships on the ocean. In fact, I just heard from a Navy guy who was on a nuclear armed ship that had ET visitation because of their concern about these weapons. Now, of course,
Right.
the spin meisters in the intelligence community and the UFO community have spun that as an invasion from the aliens and a threat to our national security. That's not true. I mean, obviously, if they wanted to turn all those systems off, they turn them off tomorrow. It's because they're concerned about us being out of control and violent to the point that we could destroy Earth, but also we are a threat to other worlds out there at this point. Absolutely. With the technologies we have that are beyond the speed of light. Mm-hmm. You know, as Ben Rich, who is the head of the Lockheed Skunk Works, said, we already have the means to take ET home, quote unquote. He said that. So, and he knew what he was talking about. All right.
That was quite a while ago.
Yeah, that was in the 80s or 90s. Yeah, at least 30 years ago.
That is now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I mean, because you have an exponential development of technologies as you know, with each decade. Right. And you figure, well, trillions of dollars in beyond black budget funding, and some of the brightest minds in the world that they recruit out of high school and college working on these systems. Right. You have some serious payoffs. Unfortunately, they're in the hands of the worst criminal enterprise the Earth has ever seen. And those are the folks keeping this secret, which means even more that so let me frame this another way about what we're doing out in Arizona, September 16th, 18th, 17th, 18th. There has to be another countervailing force that's positive.
Yes.
Another type of energy coming from humans besides all this fear mongering and saber rattling and taking everything as a paranoid military threat. And these civilizations have been waiting. I actually say they've been knocking on our front door, back door, basement door for 80 years, since the 40s, waiting for humans to answer properly. But the UN isn't doing this. The foreign ministries aren't. The State Department isn't. So that's why a private group, a public group but private in the sense it's not part of any government, is so important. A non-governmental organization, which is what we are, because that is exactly how change happens in the world. And by doing it, when you understand the multiplier effect of a group of people in meditation and coherence. I know that last time we did this in Arizona in April at the 𝗴𝗶𝗶 Native American facility, there was those meditations in the evenings. There was such coherence and silence, and everyone could feel the effect that was having on not only that's where we were, but beyond. Because remember, the conscious field isn't limited by space and time. It affects everything. That's the power of non-locality, as it's called, or entanglement. And so, understanding those principles, which we'll go into a great deal over the course of the weekend, and then practicing them, that's what we want people to leave with that experience.
Yeah, that Friday night, I was literally shocked.
Mm-hmm.
I was. That Friday night, because from 8 to 10,
mm-hmm.
You did an earlier session. But that night we came back to do this evening session where we did a puja. We did the whole puja, and then you led a meditation. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, this will be interesting to see how people who really have never done this before, are they going to be able to kind of follow along and kind of be still, and how will this work? I was absolutely, everybody, we were all looking at each other like, oh my God, this is amazing. You could have heard a pin drop.
Oh, I know.
I don't remember, it was 600 people in there, I don't even know how many hundreds and hundreds there were. Literally, you could have heard a pin drop in there. The coherence and the energy that emanated from that group meditation was, amazing to me.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And I think everyone felt that. So many people commented on it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's going to be picked up by these civilizations from other star systems.
Right.
Because their technologies and their awareness are not looking through the Webb telescope. I mean, their technologies are beyond the speed of light, beyond just 3D dimension, right?
Right.
3 dimensions. And so that's going to be sensed and known, and it actually resonates, and it actually then attracts these civilizations to interact with a group that's peaceful, coherent, enlightened, and are safe. Because a group like that is not giving off the energy of fear and violence, right?
No, they're giving off the intention
Yeah.
of friendly, peaceful contact.
Mm-hmm. This is why when people say, "Oh, you're going to do a sky watch," I go, "No, no, no, no. We're not. This is way beyond going out and just looking at the sky. Yeah. This is actively becoming part of the cosmic mind, and then doing it specific." And of course, what I recommend also to people listening is to get the CE5 Contact app. It's actually right now number 4 in the world on educational apps on the iTunes store, App Store. And because that has an entire training program. So if you go through that before you come in September, then you're going to be much more prepared and more powerful. You will be a more powerful ambassador. We call that whole program Ambassadors to the Universe, that we're citizen ambassadors from Earth. And this is what I want, like training people to think of themselves this way, as the sort of liaison and emissaries from the earth in peace to these other civilizations, all of them. And that has a very powerful effect because honestly, until we founded the CE5 Contact movement in 1990, nobody was doing that on a global scale. So I think it's really important that the 𝗖𝗄 humans finally, after all these years, doing something meaningful and enlightened. Now switching, a little bit to another issue here. I've been spending every week. I've been going into Washington D.C. and taking meetings, and I have some very important news. There are both a Senate and a House bill that will be part of the Defense Authorization Act that goes through this fall, that provides explicit, specific whistleblower and protection and release, or a vehicle for witnesses who in the military or contracting world or intelligence world who've been involved in these covert UFO programs to legally share their information. Mm-hmm. Now, we sent out something about that, and as a result, a very senior Air Force officer, now retired, contacted me, who has very in-depth knowledge and involvement with this. And he said he's been watching what we've been doing with the Disclosure Project for 20 years, and has kept his powder dry until we were able to get this moved through. And that's going to go through in another month or two, a couple months. So this is extremely good news, but it's important that all of us share this YouTube link, because you never know who's out there who's been following this, waiting for this moment.
Right.
No, remember, the presidents and the CI directors and these sort of people I briefed in the past didn't want to go this far. The folks who are running the investigation inside the government now do, and they are going this far. So this is a game changer. In 32 years of doing this, and as the founder of the Global Disclosure Project movement, I've never seen anything like this in terms of its potential.
This is really historic. Really,
there's a door is opened, and we better move through that door because it could slam shut again. So I encourage people to share this information with everyone they know. You never know who is in your network of friends, family, work associates who are in fact people who have had some involvement with this issue, who have been sitting on the fence or waiting for a safe vehicle, a safe way to move their knowledge forward and to end the criminal programs keeping this secret. And by the way, 99% of everyone involved in those projects don't know that they're being run illegally.
They don't?
No, they have no idea. Only the very top echelon. So let me explain something to folks. Most people are sort of cogs in a very big machine in these beyond black, unacknowledged special access projects, because most of them don't know what I learned in 1993 when I briefed the director of the CIA.
Mhm.
And that is that beginning in 1956 or so, the constitutional government of the United States was decapitated. President, senior folks were actually being deceived and moved out of an organization that arrogated to itself the right to work on this issue, but not inform the constitutional leaders in the White House or the Congress. So those projects went completely rogue, let's say, in the late 50s. This is why Eisenhower in 1961, when he left office, said, beware the military-industrial complex. Now, the very good news is that there are extremely senior people now in the US government that we've given actionable intelligence to who now know that that is true and not some, subculture conspiracy theory nonsense. So they know for a fact it's true, but the implications of it, obviously, are there are people who have worked for a period of time or episodically, or maybe they had an incidental event that they saw. They don't know that these projects, they were told, keep this secret, sign this 70-year non-disclosure agreement, and they thought they were signing on to a legally sanctioned, even if it was a black project, a legally sanctioned black project, right? Now, I have been meeting with people who manage the black budget of the United States who denied access to these projects. That's more proof of what I said in the 90s after briefing the CI director and after I briefed the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Wilson, and the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, on and on and on, and members of the Senate Intelligence Committee, even in the 90s. They all said, look, we know nothing about this. So there's no way those projects are being run legally if the president, the CI director, the Secretary of Defense, the people in charge of the Pentagon at that level can't get access to and are threatened. Admiral Wilson admitted he was threatened with demotion, and he told me worse if he kept pushing on it. There's a former member of Congress who at the time was a member of Congress that I briefed. I found out about a month ago, 2 months ago, that a couple of guys showed up and threatened to kill him and his family if he pursued this any further. Now, that's another reason why we're putting this in place, to also get a protection for these whistleblowers. So we're not only providing people who have their non-disclosure agreements and security oaths, whistleblower protection, as well as a mechanism around those. In often cases, they literally sign 70-year secrecy agreements, but we're also providing a mechanism for them to be protected physically and eventually financially as well, if that's in play. So I think this is why, whether you're on the corporate side of it with a contractor or military or intelligence or other government agency, you need to contact us at SiriusDisclosure.com, SIRIUS disclosure.com. And there is actually a box on the contact bar for witnesses, military corporate witnesses. It's very important because this is a very, very big development. And the support is now there, and there's a mechanism there. And it has to happen, I think, pretty efficiently in the next year or so, because I don't know that the window is going to be open for much longer than that. So I think, time is of the essence.
Yeah, I think so. And that's huge news. I mean, that's so much different than what it's been in the past.
Oh yeah, there's nothing like it. I mean, I'm in DC every week and have been for decades, and I've never, this is by far the most promising movement forward. And by the way, it's totally separate from that office at the Pentagon, or that sort of dog and pony so clueless open hearings that happened a couple months ago that were frankly a charade. Right. Because the guys who were there testifying didn't even know what the Maelstrom Nuclear Strategic Air Command nuclear case was, which is, of course, multiple disclosure project witnesses and official U.S. government documents that we published in 2001. Okay, 21 years ago. So you're dealing with people who are where it's really just sort of a storefront. But there's another thing going on. What I'm trying to tell people without saying what I cannot go into details on is that there's something else going on that's very profound and very effective.
And I'm sure they wonder how you know all this stuff.
Well, look, it's 32 years of hard work and over 1,000 or more top secret guys who give me information, documents, facilities, project code names, the locations of underground work areas, on and on and on and on. And I'm conveying all of that to these people, every shred of it. It's a process. Yeah, we're in the process of getting my archive properly digitally scanned and organized so that it can be put into a massive archive for these folks. Someday, maybe we'll make it available to the public if we had enough. Well, again, we're doing this with all volunteers, so.
Right.
But it's, I've told them I don't want any official U.S. government support or funding. I want to stay fiercely independent, which I've always been. Yeah, it's so not Washington because everyone has their hand out. But I said, yeah, those things come with very big strings and ropes that tie you up. No, thank you. I'm fierce, as you know, Pat, I'm fiercely independent. I will not be corrupted. I walked away from the head of General Stubblebine offered me $2 billion. He was the head of Army Intelligence and the Special Forces in 1992. And he offered me personally $2 billion to betray what we're doing. I said, no, thank you. So I think that this is something that people have to understand the kinds of threats that are scary and bribes that are substantial that have corrupted this process since the late 1950s. Lethal force has been used and a lot of money. Remember I met with a member of this committee that runs these covert programs in 1993 prior to briefing the director of the CIA, where he said, we have paid at least 10,000 people $10 million each or more to secure their cooperation with what we're doing. And then he offered me another kind of bribe. So I think that that's real. It's outrageous. But look, a lot of people for that kind of money will say, oh yeah, sure, great. They'd sell their grandmother under the bus for that. Or if they're threat, I mean, this is why I tell people the currency that matters in this is integrity, honesty, courage, perseverance. These people I'm working with in DC, they have all that. We've gone round and round. So they're going the distance and they're very courageous people.
Glad to hear that, yeah.
Yeah, but they're not the political class, lawyer class of, kind of nancing around folks. These are people who've done special operations. They've done very courageous things. They understand the risks. They have the ability to go the distance legally now. And so far, they're going the distance. So while that door is open, I'm making an appeal to everyone who's listening, who's concerned about this kind of illegal secrecy. Remember, this group is a transnational group that's global, that responds to no legal government anywhere in the world, that have technologies thousands of years more advanced than anything the mainstream legal constitutional government of the United States or China or Russia or Great Britain or France have. So that's what you're dealing with. And I don't sugarcoat the challenge. It's a huge challenge. But what we have is the force of higher consciousness. This is why I ask people, when we do this 𝗵𝗀𝗶 event in Arizona, in outside Phoenix in September, I will lead people through a meditation where we put our awareness on all those facilities and all those organizations and see a different energy entering their hearts and minds to cooperate with moving this forward into a nonviolent change. So that's very important. The power of meditation and prayer. You have to work on, I think, many dimensions.
Absolutely.
And I get a lot of people say, why don't you just stick with disclosure things? Why don't you just stick with the CE5? I said, no, it's all part and parcel. Mm-hmm. Now I have another exciting announcement. This will be the last one. We just started last week the organization and production of the next huge feature film, The Lost Century. And it's going to be an expose of 100 years or more of exotic, amazing, free energy, zero-point energy, anti-gravity technology. That will be a 2-hour special that we hope to have finished to have come out early next year sometime. Right. So we're starting work on that. You'll be hearing more about it. We do need to crowdfund and do some things with it. We haven't set that up yet. But we're going to need a lot of help and support. Now, if you're listening, what we need right now, anyone who has an operating free energy device, quote unquote, I say free energy, meaning coming from the quantum vacuum or 0-point plasma generators, putting out more energy than it consumes when you start it up, they need to contact us immediately, because we're going to get 1 billion to 2 billion people to see this. We're going to use all the big influencers, and a lot of the celebrities interested in this will get behind it. Secondly, we need to have people who have collected archives of past inventions that have been suppressed, mm-hmm. and that have been tested and have validity, not just some rumor of something. We need that because we want to feature the top 10 of those in this 2-hour documentary. So anyone who has that information, who's been researching this, please get that to us immediately, because we're actually collecting all that now. And in September, early October, we're going to do all the interviews with people, and then be in post-production October, November, December. And then this will be ready to hand off to whatever distributor to get it out to the public for 2023. So we're on a very tight, fast timeline. Of course, anyone who's worked with me knows that I don't know how to work any other way, but we need help with that. So people listening, if you can help us, please don't write us with just rumors or nonsense. We need very, scientific, legitimate things. And we're not interested, by the way, in someone who has an idea about something. We have thousands of pages of people's theoretical ideas. We're not interested in theories. We're not interested in someone's idea. Only something operational right now that can be run, or very solid evidence of not only the existence of previous ones, but also their suppression. How were they suppressed? Were the people killed? Was it confiscated? Was the National Security Act abused and national security orders? Were their patents confiscated? All these techniques have been used in the past, and we want to feature the ones that have the strongest evidence, not just rumors, right. But the strongest evidence for it. Because the public, think about it, the public, like they have with the UFO issue, where's the evidence? That's why we did the Disclosure Project and put 110 top secret witness testimonies together and all the documents. So we have to do the same thing with this, where we prove that this is not an urban myth, and that your Tesla automobile, instead of having 900 pounds of lithium-ion batteries, could have one this big, and then one of these generator motors, boom, and it runs, never has to be charged, never have to plug it in.
Huge.
Yeah, it's
I
big
love
change.
The idea that you're going to do a CGI to show what would this world look like, because mm-hmm. people do not have the ability to visualize what they know right. is what we see right now, and they can't imagine what the world would look like or how it would be. So and
that's a huge problem. I think part of what we're going to put, we're going to need some support for this, but we're going to have people who can do really good graphics and motion graphics, and to show what the Earth would look like in 10 years, 20 years, 100 years, 500 years, 1,000 years, because it's a complete, nothing looking back thousands of years could prepare anyone for what the world will look like in 50, when all this technology is put into peaceful use. It is a whole new world. And that's why I'm convinced the ET, when Colonel Corso said, "What's in it for me?" when the ET at White Sands in 1956 said, "Would you help us?" And he was very brash and admitted to us, he said, "Oh yeah, I was just like this young Air Force colonel, And the ET said, a new world, if you can take it. It is a new world, beautiful. And we want to show that to people because I think there's so much hopelessness about the environment, inflation and oil and pollution and toxicity and the oceans dying. And it is depressing. Sure. But that's not it. You have to know, you have to describe the problem, which we will do, but we also have to describe that we have a solution and then prove it and then show the world in the aftermath, because it has to become a publicly supported movement. Right. Because let's face it, any inventor that has one of these devices, if you're listening, you're not going to be able to get this out through any conventional strategy that a normal technology would get out through. You're going to have 1 to 2 billion people know about it. You're going to have strategic security in place. You're going to have an enormous infrastructure around it, or it'll be squashed like a bug. And I tell people, thousands of these devices and inventions since before Tesla have come and gone. Why have they never gotten out into application? Because the collusion of corporate fascists and government interests that want to keep the world centrally controlled by certain types of people with the kind of money and power they have, those people do not go quietly into the night. They want to hold on to that power, even if it kills the biosphere and millions of people. You know, even if you don't believe in global climate change and warming, 5 million people or more a year die from just the particulate pollution in the air from coal and gas and pollution. And God knows how many from cancer, from all the toxicity that's in our food supply, water, ground, and air. So it's the number of people who died in the Holocaust happening every year just due to pollution. People don't think about this. Right. And never mind, there are 3 billion people on the planet that still don't have any means to cook their food with gas or electricity. They're cutting down old growth forests and wood. And there's what's called desertification, where this growth of deserts is happening because it's all being chopped down for subsistence. That's 3 billion people.
That's nearly 30%.
No, it's more than 30. It's more like 40%.
Is it really more?
Yeah, it's more than 40% of the world's population. So, you know, when you're dealing with that kind of situation, you're not going to fix it with solar or wind. And you're not going to fix it by just drilling more oil and gas and coal. So what the points we're going to make is that both sides are right and wrong. The people advocating more oil and gas, in the sense, are correct that the current technology that people know about won't replace the power grid in the United States. I think the whole world could run about 75 seconds, it's estimated, on the amount of battery storage that you need for wind and solar that we currently have on the earth. 75 seconds. It just is too little, and it's going to be too little too late. But it's also not an answer to just keep dredging up oil, gas, and coal, even if we have hundreds of years of supply, because it's poisoning the planet. Right. So both sides have, and here's the thing, always remember, when both sides are right and wrong in different aspects, but in, of course, in a polarized world, nobody thinks this way anymore. Both are missing something. What is this other ingredient being missed? It's these technologies that have been kept secret. That's the solution. And that's why the lost century, and the subcaption to it is, and how to retrieve it. So the lost century and how to retrieve it. That is such an important thing for the public to know about, because it's not as simple as an inventor saying, oh, I have a new energy thing and the world's going to beat a path to your door. Before the world's going to know about it, you're going to be killed, or you're going to be offered $100 million and be rich. It's not going to get out to the public. We have to develop a strategy where 1 billion, 2 billion people know about it, understand it, and get behind the support socially to move it forward. That's how change happens, when you're dealing with a asymmetric, powerful group of folks who are a very small number of people, you know, a thousandth of 1% of the public, not the 1%, but who have outsized power and are willing to use force to maintain that power. To change that, I mean, this is real power to the people here. Right. To change that, you have to have a totally different way of thinking. And that's what we want to present. And we're going to need help with that. So,
you know, it seems, looking back in the history, some of the largest changes socially that helped our world have really come from a grassroots program from people. I mean, it's always
everything. It's everything.
Right.
Yep. No big change that's happened in human history has come from the people at the top of the pyramid.
Right.
Because they're at the top. They don't want to see that change. Right.
Right.
Think about it. Think about the power dynamic.
Right.
So it comes from the base of that pyramid, us, you know, those sort of ordinary people like you and me. And I put myself squarely in that category. I mean, having grown up very poor in the South and with no privilege and no access to anything, I think people have to view themselves as, however, you know, how would Martin Luther King or Gandhi or any past movement that's led to great advancements in science or thought or society happen if we had waited for the king or the emperor or whoever was at the top to do it? It would have never, ever, ever happened.
Never.
So that's what we live in a time where, because of the internet and social media and smartphones and all that, I think people and TV become more and more passive. And we have to develop an activist base for not only CE5 Contact, to make contact peacefully with these other civilizations, but to also do disclosure, which is what we're doing. And then the third part of this triangle, you know, our logo is this 3 circles, makes an equilateral triangle. That third one is the energy, the technologies and new energy systems that will run the planet indefinitely, with no pollution and without poverty. And therefore, eventually, if you solve the social justice poverty issues, you can eventually have a foundation for lasting peace. And without peace, there is no future, because the technologies, once you get to the nuclear threshold, are such that without peace, you're facing every decade or two a situation like we have now, where Russia's threatening to send nuclear weapons to America if we support Ukraine, all this kind of stuff. So this sort of thinking is not sustainable once you go past machine guns and tanks and conventional bombs, because such an event would be the end of life on Earth. So I think we have to develop a civilization where it's a totally different consciousness first, a set of values, but also the technologies go with it. It's not going to help the Earth if everyone's sitting in enlightenment in a cave and we're all still using oil and gas and coal to have air conditioning and run our cars and heat our houses and manufacture things. You know, China right now is building 30 new coal-fired power plants. One of them, it'll be the biggest one in the world. So, and India is similarly. So this is happening all over, and it's getting worse and worse. And the only solution is the known solution. And even though it's covert and it's controversial, we're also going to have interviews with really top drawer physicists, PhD physicists at universities, who are going to confirm the 0-point energy field and confirm these technologies. So this is going to be a very hard-hitting piece.
Right.
So anyone who has leads for us on any of this, please contact us, because we're actually in production now.
Yeah, when I read the description, I thought, wow, this is going to cover a lot of very, very important and really very interesting stuff. I mean, really interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Cool.
Well, I hope all of you can join us. I'll let you go now. It's been about an hour, I think, and I got to run. But thank you, guys. Thank you, Pat. And I hope all of you can join us either in person or virtually in September in Arizona, where we'll make contact, CE5 Contact in Arizona in the desert.
Thank you, Dr. Greer.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.